No public comment.
And there's no
Looks like.
public comment. And we are now recording.
Right. The June 2025 meeting of the Board of Commissioners for the South Whidbey Parks and Recreation District is called to order at 6:03 p.m. We have a quorum present. Is there anyone for public comment?
There is not.
All right. Will you lead us through the financial report, please?
I will. I will put Carrie to simplify these even more this month. Just figuring that the month by month reports are not really telling because they're just based on predictions, and that the overall skew of the year was more important. So tell me if you agree or disagree, but I will show you what we did. My computer's me a little bit here. There we go. There we go. So the first one is the cumulative, as you can see. Still doing well. We're at from what we budgeted to what we actually brought in revenue, we're a little under $30,000 over, and our expenditures are about $119,000 or $118,000 less than what we anticipated. So that's pretty consistent with last month's or with the entire year's trend that we're doing well. The fund balances, we added the bond fund at the request last month of adding that.
Thank you.
Are all holding steady. Nothing really in the financial reports really jumping out at me this month. And then the construction fund, which again is going to be really interesting over the next 6 months, but for now is holding steady and still have about $14.5 million left. The plan at this point is to go out early 26 for the other 12 million. So we do have kind of a tentative timeline. Part of it will be depend on whether we're under contract for the pool at that point. There's no rush at that, but if we start in the early 26, we'll get the 12 million in spring of 26, which will be good. That'll be at the right time. So we do have a plan for getting the rest of the money, but as you can see, there's no reason to get it just to get it. So, but from the financial side, that was just about it. The funds are doing well. I can go through the vouchers. I'll hop back on. Sorry, my computer's moving a little slow tonight, so we're going to put it up a little bit here. There we go. The vouchers, again, very similarly, didn't have anything that really jumped out at me. I did note down here, where is it at? There we go, the traffic control services. This is where we're rerouting the triathlon, still pending Langley's approval. I don't think we've officially got it. They haven't shown any concern. They just haven't officially rubber stamped the plan to take the triathlon through down First Street this year.
Who approves that? The city council or the mayor or?
Sky?
I think it's the police chief.
It goes to multiple departments, and then they also have a committee that goes over the permit applications. And spoken to the police chief, and he said that yes, it'll get approved. They don't know exactly, what stipulations will be involved, or if they're gonna have restricted parking in any areas. But as for now, he said just move forward on First Street, and you'll hear from us.
It'd be great if they could restrict parking just until noon.
Just even on just the side where the Clyde is.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that. So then that's what I told him I really was hoping for. Because Sunday was at Primo looking down on an enormous amount of people and everybody walking and cars pulling out.
Yes.
Second's closed down, or they're gonna do construction on Second?
No, but Second, what you get is you have all the angled parking.
Oh, that's right.
So they would be
Talked
backing
about
up
that.
into it, whereas First doesn't. So
What about Third? That's on the other side of Brookhaven. That's just too residential.
they're doing some construction there, and because it's the
It doesn't go
residential piece,
through.
and there's a little
Third
curve,
doesn't
but
go
it's
through.
also a huge hill. And
Or not Third, the street after.
Fourth.
Fourth.
Yeah.
Sorry.
yeah, I'd throw in those, but that one, there's still, because you have narrow roads, people pulling out. Like First Street at least is a bit more open, and we can deal with it a bit better. So
Second year in a row that Sky has just spent an enormous amount of time routing and rerouting. And last year was a chip sealing, this year was this. And Langley's been, I think, very helpful and reasonable. There's nothing that makes me think they're not going to approve this. But to be proactive, we spent a little bit of money on a traffic plan just to,
Right, with whom? Is traffic control services like
yes,
a
flaggers.
company?
And they will make official recommendations as to where they think the right places to.
So they're who we hire out the flaggers
Yeah.
through, because we have to have some
I see.
flaggers. So they're the ones that come from Seattle, but they also, go over all this. They actually gave us like half off on it because we hire them out. To just go over the plan and say, this is
Okay,
our official.
So that's our one and
recommendation.
only bill from them.
No, we'll get a flagger.
No, for this, we'll still have another one that's gonna be for paying for the flaggers, and there'll be a couple more flaggers because there's more
Yeah.
intersections,
Yeah.
so.
We paid for their consulting here to
Yeah.
say,
right.
safety is the number one issue. And we're a bunch of Parks and Rec people looking at this saying, well, we think this is good. And so these guys are the professionals that looked at it and said, yeah, this is good. And this is where you might be concerned.
And they provided 5 separate pages of maps,
Yeah.
specifying exactly where flaggers and volunteers and cops will be.
There's another job my guidance counselor never told you.
It's not too late. Anyways, so that was the only thing that I thought was a little odd, and not odd, but just different in
No,
our
thank you.
vouchers. But
Yeah.
any other questions about the vouchers?
Waxy sanitary supply.
Yeah, that's just our
Toilet paper.
toiletries, that kind of stuff.
Because it came under miscellaneous building repair.
I don't know why that came that way. I don't know if they bought some new install there or some new dispensers or
I think
something.
there was something.
Yeah.
On that.
Okay.
Waxy's our go-to.
Okay,
Other than that, I have no comments about that, and all the construction fund stuff's just getting bigger, and a lot of Pacifica Law Group these days, so making sure we're doing everything right, so that's all I got for that.
and the ads, the bids, that made sense.
Yep. Yeah, we did them local for the subs, we did them for the Seattle Times, just to be transparent. But really, there's we'll talk about this more, but there's a organization called Builders Exchange, is where everyone goes for all this stuff. The people that are building things like this, but we want to make sure everyone knows, right? Information's on our website. We're being as transparent as we can to make sure that anyone who's interested, now's the time. Right? Yeah.
Are there any questions on any of the vouchers or any of the other financial statements? Not, we will move on to the consent agenda. Entertain a motion.
Right. I move to approve the consent agenda.
I will second that.
Has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Krista, I.
Jake, I.
For aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the consent agenda is approved.
Right.
Moving on to the staff report, please.
All right, lots of stuff here. I'll try to go through it. Quite honestly, the staff report could be 3 or 4 pages these days, so I try to highlight. Recreation report. We requested a meeting with the community center to discuss our financial arrangement and the possibility of adding a classroom for community programming. We do a weird thing that, not weird, but right now Sky's got to track hours and bill against hours, and we have a cap on how much is the most we would pay. But we just need a flat fee. It's easier for Sky, it's easier for them, so they're not dealing with different invoices. And we'd also like a classroom over there because there's some programming stuff. We talk a lot about like senior card days or where they go play bridge or whatever. And, a classroom that, as part of this deal would be good for us because we'd be able to offer some free programming and stuff like that for the community at little to no cost or impact to us. So
Are there rooms available?
there is.
Yeah, and especially since we no longer have that conference room that we used to be able to utilize, and
We lost there.
yeah, like the doghouse doesn't really work because there's not bathrooms or anything. So in speaking with who handles some of that over there, they've currently got 2 rooms that aren't really being used much right now that could easily utilize them.
And the new superintendent has now started, from what we understand, but there's a transition going on in the district. So some of this will get figured out. We've requested the meeting with Gail over there, and she's wonderful. So we'll get that meeting, but just set in time. So
I
what
would think it would be advantageous. I mean, it's a community center,
Yeah.
right? And they're running it like that. And here you're saying, hey, you've got programming.
and we're still willing to pay, even though we have an interlocal that really is questionable, rather we should pay. And for the work they do, I support that, but I think this is it's a win-win. And so I think it's just getting people to the table to have that conversation. And so we're working on that and we'll get there. It's on the list. Summer's here, so it's on the list somewhere.
Yeah, and I guess to know the process, like I have to track the hours. I then send it to the community center in the school district. Then immediately the school district sends back an invoice to us. We then pay to the school district. So I'm basically having to create our own invoice. These things.
Or if we could just say $1,500 a month, we'll just write you a check every month and then we don't, or this much a year, and just be done with it. And be easier for Carrie, be easier for Sky, be easier for their side. Just smart. It's just smart. So we're working on that. As I mentioned before, we're still trying to get the permits for the triathlon, but we're getting there. Softball is happening. Oh yeah. please.
Triathlon.
Yes.
So how are we on registrations?
We're okay.
We're up from last year at this point. So,
Nice.
like I was just looking at the revenue, we're like $500 off short of what we had last year for revenue, based on registration. So
Okay.
the numbers, the individual numbers are up. The team numbers are down a little bit, but the individual numbers have gone up.
So we're confident that we're on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's gonna happen. We're working hard to save this triathlon. The numbers have to work this year. They didn't work last year. They haven't worked for a lot of years when you really look at the numbers. It's just, he spends weeks of his year doing this event. Last year, we had 33 people from South Woodby participate. It's a lot of work for 33 people. So we need those numbers changed. That's why we've been working with Brenda and Sandy. We've been working on it, trying to do what we can do. We've tried some new things. We've got the class here in a couple weeks that has a few registrations. So we'll see. We're
Training for.
yes.
Okay.
So we're putting all the chips on the table this year. We're gonna see what happens. Sky's on top of it. And then we'll evaluate what it looks like afterwards.
What if any, I understand we are South Woodby Parks and Recreation, but what if any marketing is happening north of Classic Road?
I mean, the activity guide is gonna be the biggest thing that's really marketed Facebook, but really, Brenda Levy, it sounds like word of mouth is doing a lot with the bicycling club,
Right,
the open
Bike
water
would
swimming
be-
club,
Mhm.
like that kind of encompasses all of it.
I just mention it because I think for the purposes of this particular event, it is Woodby Island, it's the Woodby Island Triathlon, not just South Woodby. I think we need to open up our definition of local out to include the rest of the island. And I'll just pass on, I had a customer, my office 2 days ago, dropping off a boat for repair.
Mhm.
I was just taking their information. I have my would be a triathlon, I don't know, plaque or something from however many years ago. And this is somebody from Coopville who said, oh, there's a triathlon on Woodby.
What about the Woodby Weekly paper? That's a widely distributed, free, and at quite a few businesses.
Usually, I mean, to an extent they do because the activity guide is created by Would Be
them.
Weekly.
Yeah.
And so it's included in one of their weeks, and then there's
Oh, okay.
extra copies that, get left at different places, but there's always, that cover has a mention of the triathlon each time.
But it might be worth doing 1 or 2 separate ads for the triathlon in the Woodby Weekly. Just a suggestion.
Old school poster boards at various places. The grocery stores and stuff still have poster boards and.
Yeah, we have posters out. We have some, I don't know where they're at exactly. Brenda took a bunch.
Yeah, that was-
Because that was kind of, So we have a big flyer out.
Well, and there's something that's supposed to be going out here soon to the Athletic Club members.
It went out, yeah. So that was a new thing we did this year is Katie Shapiro agreed to distribute that to all their members.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're working. It's a pretty big deficit we're looking at. The other thing, and we'll talk about this more after the event, because I really want to find a path forward on the triathlon. But I also looked this year at all the triathlons in the state. There's like 30 some of them. We're the only one I found that runs a triathlon by ourselves as a government agency with a staff of one. Right. I mean, the closest one I found was Bellingham. Bellingham runs a triathlon, but they have a company that comes in that does the logistical work. So problem here is because we're a point to point, those companies aren't quite as interested in ours because it's a more complicated route. But these are things we're looking at. There's just, I don't want to be a negative Nelly. It's encouraging that the numbers are up, but we'll see where they land. I mean, the numbers are objective. We're going to see at the end of the year what we look like and make a decision based on that. So, but for this year, it's looking good. Right. I mean, once we get Langley signing off, we'll have a beautiful July day. And
I saw the volunteer email went out.
Yeah, and that one, they're kind of in purgatory, I guess. Because without knowing where I have to have volunteers in certain spots, I was kind of waiting. So once I spoke with the police chief and knew, okay, here's what we can do, then I can update and change all the spots where we have and the different descriptions of where they're at. So we're definitely, there's some spots where we're going to have some crucial new volunteers where, I might need to really pinpoint some individuals we've had in the past. Like I said, like that crosswalk at Dog and Boy Park is really going to be crucial to watching and making sure you're letting pedestrians know, like, bikers are coming, hold off just a little bit. Because when you hire the flaggers, they can't stop vehicles technically. Only the police officers can. And we usually only get.
Really?
Yeah.
Have we all been stopped by flaggers?
Mm-hmm.
It depends. Like they make it known like they are not able to just randomly stop traffic. They can stop people from going down certain roads, but they can't stop traffic all of a sudden.
Makes sense.
So with that, like we request 2 police officers from City of Langley. They don't have, we get 1 from them. So usually we try and get, one of the sheriffs to leave the lake and all over to where it is. Because when it comes to 4-way intersections, you pretty much have to have an officer at those areas running it. So we've got a couple little newer areas now this year where there are 3-way stops, but I still think that, if I remember right, that like we can have them, the flaggers out there holding things saying slow. We can have volunteers reminding people stop at the stop sign, but there's nothing that they can do to stop traffic in those downtown areas.
Is it gonna go the entirety of First Street, past Generation Park? Behind the.
Yeah, so basically like coming out of Saratoga, take that left onto De Bruyne where it turns right into First, and then down the Sweet Box Hill to the stop sign at Anthus, and then up to the library, and then up from there on Cascade to, I guess it's whatever 6 turns of the Cascade.
Cascade to Langley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna have some speed when they come out of the doghouse right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they'll slow down a little bit when they're coming up the hill this year to where Wick is at that 4-way.
Yeah.
It'll be good. It'll work. The plan is solid. It's signed off on. I think Langley will sign off on it. Just different. Just like last year, it's different. So yeah, we have the full bike length this year though, you'll be able to do the full course. So
Yeah, I did have a couple people that were disappointed that it wasn't 9 miles yet.
Just tell them they can go back out.
Yeah, Jake's in the room. You can just call him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Not me. I was on a mountain bike.
All right. Other recreation stuff, softball season's everything's upon us right now. Camps have started. Softball starts this Friday, got 4 teams. swim lessons. And a lot of our camps have started. So the soccer camps up, the Levo camp is up at the community part or the sports complex this week. Summer's here, and it's just skimboarding and all that stuff starts next week. So it's a busy time for Sky. Facilities, we're having issues. This has been an ongoing issue since I've been here. With people doing particularly goalie training up at the sports complex, they go up there, they're taking money, they get kids after school to pay for specific training. So they're using our field to make money. Most of them have been talked to and said, hey, you can't do that. We have said, come sign up through us. Run your soccer goalie thing through us. We'll take a very small portion, but ultimately we'll know you're here and can reserve space for you. We're working now to see what happens when they continue to blow us off, because it does become a challenge when the park guys are up there and you see, there was a group up there the other week that had 3 or 4 or 5 kids. So, I mean, it just goes against the policies. You can't just make money in our park. But we've given them multiple opportunities to fill out an application to join us in partnership. And that's not what they're interested in, right? Parents are just paying them directly and they're happy. And so anyways, we're working on that. I don't have a policy for it yet, or an enforcement. It's really not a policy. We have a policy. We don't have an enforcement that without, kicking them out of the park, which we want more kids in our park, not out.
Right,
So,
yeah, it's a bad optic to the kids.
right. So we're trying to figure out how to get the adults to do their jobs, which is, because we're trying every way possible to work with them, because isn't that we don't want them there. It's that you can't just start charging people and use our stuff, because it's a Pandora's box that doesn't go well for any of us. So anyways, we're working on that. Speaking of working on it, we have an update at Deer Lake. So I'm going to scroll down here a little bit on my computer. The dock at Deer Lake is having problems again. This is the old dock.
Yeah.
And you'll see here, there's a good size separation. This one's starting to sink. So the connectors here they weren't in great shape when we were out there last time. So this doesn't shock me. The water was in enough that I couldn't get out there without swimming out there. And I wasn't doing that. So, but we're in the season. So I reached out to the Department of Fish and Wildlife and said, this is what this looks like. And we gotta, seems to me at this point, removing the dock from their perspective probably is going to make sense, because at some point this is a liability. You can't just have a broken dock out there with kids jumping off it. I did hear Austin, who lives on the lake, says what the kids are doing now is they're mostly going off the new dock. Now that doesn't have the buoys though, so you do have that concern with jet skiers and other things. And again, this isn't our lake, but it is our community, so it's how to make it safe. So I have let them know. I haven't heard back from them yet, so hopefully they're putting together some kind of discussion or plan on how we can safeten that up a little bit. Lake use is right on cue, is way up. It's been a real dry spring, so irrigation's way up. They're irrigating like it's July. A month ago they were doing that. So lake, it's been real busy. So staff are spending a lot of time out there. Now to my report with some updates in red. The National Night Out is set. It's on August 5th. We moved it up to the sports complex. So, and just following up on that, Tom had an initial discussion with the project manager who's in charge of the school. Like you saw the high school, they've now moved in trailers and excavators and they're going to be doing a lot of work this summer. So Tom went over just to say, hey, let's talk about park usage and access. But one of the things that looks good is they haven't really closed off that side parking lot. So the next question back to them now that we're waiting on to answer to is, so can we, is it going to be open for parking on the weekends, triathlon in particular, but even concerts in the park in the evening? So it looks like it is. It looks like they're not going to close that one entrance, and that's where their staff basically park during the day. So it looks like we will have some parking into the summer, which would be helpful, especially on the triathlon. So we'll get back to you on that. Public meetings for the levy, preferences. I need to set those. One thought we had here was that we could do a nice public meeting right there at the gym across the way. It's got chairs, it's got easy location. So that could be a nice south end location. Do we want to try to find a north end location? I know we've done Trinity.
I was going to say, I think Trinity works really well.
Is that Eric? Is Eric the one that made that connection last time? I thought. I don't know. I wasn't here for those. I was at the meetings, but I wasn't here for the scheduling. I can reach out directly to Trinity. So I think probably a couple. I'm trying to get feedback. We have the levy, and we're going to be trying to explain to people why we're doing a levy a year early and why it's this much and all this. So I'm thinking a couple evenings in the fall,
Mhm.
probably mid-September, maybe late September, early October, because I think ballots get mailed out right around 1st of October, right around there. So I think you want to get the levy, you gotta have the meetings before people can vote.
Maybe one that's either Tuesday, Thursday, and then one that's a Wednesday.
Okay.
Because like people who have things that are Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
Right, and then have an alternate.
I'm also wondering if we think about doing a daytime one, large senior population, and doing something like a 1 o'clock. Just to
Get another option, Clinton Community Hall. People are familiar with that is holding public events. Ample parking.
Freeland or Bayview?
Did I say Freeland? I meant to say Clinton
Clinton.
Oh, cool.
Community
Okay.
Community
Oh,
Hall.
okay, yeah.
Freeland's great. There's just the parking there.
The parking's, yeah,
Mhm.
that's not great.
Yeah, no, I for Freeland, I think Trinity is
Yeah.
the better one, but
So
Right,
I'll look for a couple evenings and maybe a daytime one, just a more casual one during the day, but it gives another option for people that don't want to drive at night.
Mhm.
Just want to just come in during the day. So, okay, I'll get back to you on when we have something set on those. The Dacha Theater Group is scheduled to perform at our community park on the 13th of July.
Yeah.
I just mentioned this because it was mentioned in the paper. Just to clarify, this is not us. They filled out a special use permit. It's great. I would love having them there, but it's not our performance. It's a separate performance. So they're paying a fee to use the space. And then the best news of the night, I think, I'm excited.
Correct spelling his name,
Oh, what did I spell wrong?
Muniz.
I apologize.
That's fine.
What did I? My computer, oh, it's a PDF, so I won't do it here though.
All right.
Also, I didn't put the names in when I sent it to you on Friday because things were still tentative and if it went south, I didn't want their names to be negatively portrayed, but now it's done. Local real estate agent from Windermere, Louis Munoz he connected us. He's the guy that does a 3-on-3 tournament in July for the purpose of giving money back to our scholarship fund. So he's done some great community stuff. He also was, from what I understand, instrumental in part of the original basketball court.
That was his Rotary project.
Yeah.
So he has put a lot into this court, into this community. But he put us in touch with his friend Reed McNeil, who works for Vanon, which is a major turf and sports building company in Oregon. Reed just happens to live on the island, and they happen to be doing the tennis courts at the high school. So they offered that for the price of the supplies, that they would come and do the courts for us, do them professionally with the blue and green colors and all the things that we wanted, and wonderful. And so I did reach out to our attorney because it is a public works project. You want to make sure you're not usurping bidding and all of that. But in this case, because we're not paying for it, because we have $3,000 of Rotary money and the wonderful guys from the South Whitby Project. South Whitby Project is a group of guys who basically grew up here, moved off the island, and raise money and have funds to fund projects. So basically their mission is to do things like give money to organizations in this community in South Whitby. They have like a work match. One of them does, so they give into that, and the work matches it.
They've been around.
About 2 or 3 years. They've been a while. They were in the paper a couple of years ago. Great guys and really proactive with me. They're giving money towards our pickleball project, but they're also going to pay the balance of this. So we're not going to have to pay anything for these courts. That's why the attorney was like, well, if you're not paying for it, and you're not, all you have to do is buy the supplies and you're not paying for them. There's no major equipment. There's no liability issue. They said, yeah, knock yourself out. I said, great.
Fantastic.
Wonderful. And it'll be done before Lewis's 3-on-3 tournament in July, which is great. So the week of July 7th, they said just pending on weather. They don't know which day that week. So
That's incredible.
yeah, it's gonna be great. The bad part is we're gonna lose the basketball court for about a week in July, but that's a small sacrifice to make. That basketball in this community is just, we need more. And we're talking to the school about those courts there and whether we can redo those and raise them up to 10-foot hoops so that maybe the undercover here could be an option for the community. So we're scrambling to figure out other options so kids can get outside and do that. So anyways, but this project in particular, it's really cool. When we get that done, I'll let the newspaper know, because I think it's a really cool kind of multiple groups coming together to do something for the kids in the community. So real excited about that. Yeah, it is. I told you it's the best news I was going to give you. So I think we could just end the meeting now and just be good. We have, and that's what I just said, we've had a preliminary conversation with the school district about buying some backboards and rims for down here. I think we can make this basketball court functional for adult shooting as well as kid shooting. That would be a real win for the community, because like I said, there's south of Oak Harbor, we've got the really only decent basketball courts and there's 2 hoops. So, working on that.
Don't.
Good.
I guess there is nothing up in Camp Casey.
Oh, interesting. Is there public ones there? There might be. I didn't think about Camp Casey. I was thinking about Kupel in general. They have some double room ones in Kupel. So they do have some shooting courts, but
Just Kuko's gonna be replacing theirs at the middle school, high school.
yeah. And then can you get into the middle school, high school during the weekend and evenings?
The outside area, yeah, it's right across from the
Okay.
Tyee, by the teacher parking lot there.
Okay.
But they're pretty derelict right now.
Yeah.
But my wife mentioned that they're
Okay.
in the process of replacing them.
Just giving options for kids. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. So we have some other plans for the RCO money next year too, but we'll get to that later. Working with Deanna, they have begun doing the paperwork for the resolution for the November operations levy, so that ball has started. We all know Carrie's off for the month. Corinne will be taking on the acting business manager duties in her absence. Lots of interesting dates in there. Office is closed tomorrow, but I'll be around, so if you need anything, feel free to stop by. Bids for a pickleball opening are coming in July. We'll get to all this later in the comp plan report, but a couple holidays and things to talk about there. That was a really long staff report, so I think I'll just stop it there. Any questions?
Going back to the lakes.
Yep.
We saw a draft of the new agreement or questions, and we were asking about the fees, like any further on that?
It's with Belinda, who
Okay,
does contracts, and I gave her all those comments about the fees and
okay.
they're reviewing. So it's in.
But I guess my question was, I didn't understand.
Right. It's the verbiage versus the enforcement on that a little bit too. It hasn't been enforced that we've paid fees when we ran programs out there.
Okay.
But it isn't the verbiage that if you run a recreation program or whatever, that
Yeah,
there's a fee attached.
yeah,
I just want the verbiage cleaned up so we don't get stung later. Now, we're not currently running any programs out of the beach access place. So it's not a current issue. And the triathlon requires a totally separate permit, so that's separate. But if we want to run programs there or at Deer Lake or at wherever else, because I know, there was something out at Deer Lake that we were doing something last year, whatever. We just want to make sure it's clear that we need to get prior permission, so we need to let them know, hey, we're planning to do this. And at that time, they can require us to do a separate permit if they think it's too big a deal, which would cost a fee. Or they can just authorize it, but we don't want this, we don't want it in there that we have to pay to run a program when we're the one maintaining it.
would that fee then get passed on to whoever's running the program?
Yes, yeah. It's like a group that rents that wants to run a class out of the gym or whatever. It's like, if we have a fee,
Right.
they're gonna get a fee.
So I'm just giving a concrete example of Whidbey Island Kayaking, which runs summer camps in Deer Lake, does them through Park and Rec.
Right.
And therefore Park and Rec keeps 20% for admin, et cetera.
Right.
I also pay for a fee directly to Fish and Wildlife.
Oh, do you?
Yes, I do. And then if I run another program, then you're gonna add another fee.
But do you run a fee to run that program at that lake?
I run it out of that lake.
Well, why
yes.
do you pay a fee to them?
Because our participants park in the beach area. We started at the beach area.
See, to me, that would tell me that's the kind of thing I think should be waived by them. And we should be paying the fee.
But it's not a Park and Rec program.
It isn't it? We'll put it in our brochure.
It's no different program.
Oh, different program.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it needs to be a park. Just change it to a.
Saying like it may force a provider to decide
Not to do it.
not to do it.
Right.
just not to do it under park and rec,
Yeah, we have.
right? If the choice is I can pay this person or I can pay this percentage, or if I do it this way, I have to pay both.
It's too much. What we could do in a situation, now, first of all, the answer is, we need to get that waived, and that's the answer. But if they say, no, you need to pay a fee. We have some wiggle room there. We could do an 85-15 contract with an instructor and say, listen, we do, as a public agency, we're collecting a fee, you need to pay the fee. But we could adjust your contract to different terms so that you were getting a higher percentage compensating you for the loss. At the end of the day, we're doing a lot of work out there.
Oh,
And so I think this isn't something they're gonna, and they've never charged us before. So we're just asking them to
Right.
put in writing what they've always done for us. So, and I think they will. I don't think we're asking anything crazy. I think we're just saying, can we just clarify this? Because it's not the way it's been enforced. And I think they're gonna come back and say, oh, yeah, no problem. Thank you for cleaning the toilets and mowing the lawns.
Painting the toilet.
It's like, sometimes painting. I'm not sure they're grateful for that because that's been a little more of a struggle. Anyways, yes.
Okay.
But yeah, because ultimately that 20% we get, I mean, we have to take something. Our goal though is to serve the community, right? That's the two rules of recreation. It's got to make money or it's got to serve the community.
Right.
Classes really are designed to serve the community. And that's what we want. We want options for people that, from athletics to crafts to water to.
I'm merely providing a provider viewpoint.
No, I agree. And I don't want to lose one provider because
That won't be double hit with fees.
because that goes against our mission, right? Why you wanted this to be an appealing place for a provider? We want more providers, right? We want more classes. He doesn't. I'm just kidding. He does. He's over there at summer. It's summer, Scott, because I can't handle one more thing. We want more
triathlons.
We want more classes in the fall. I'll get back to you when they get back. And like I said, I'm not sure how quickly they will get back to me, but it's in their queue. I am concerned about this stock though.
Yeah.
Just as a
Yeah.
parent. I mean, just as a community member. It's getting worse and it's getting worse fast. So. That's our staff report.
Great. There are no more discussion on the staff report, then we can move on to committee and community meeting reports, if there are any. All right, then we shall move on to unfinished business, the comprehensive plan programs, please.
Well, this is a fun one. We got another fun one tonight because we have lots of updates on the pickleball and pool projects. Pickleball, let's start there. Our project is out to bid. Bids are due back at 2:00 on July 2nd. So going into the nice long weekend, we'll be hopefully have a real good idea as to what the numbers are and what company we're leaning towards. I think it'll happen pretty quick. Hoping to have it decided by the July 16th meeting. My best case scenario is we open the bids on the 2nd, get it to you to approve on the 16th and sign the contract on the 17th.
Oh, that's
And
fantastic.
wouldn't that be great? And then
Okay.
by August 1st, they're breaking ground. Let's get these done.
Well, 5 general contractors and a couple of local subs. That's good.
Yeah, it was a good group. We had our walkthrough today. And yeah, good group, good companies, some local companies. Some local subs were out there, which is what we want to encourage. That's what we usually put it would be times, right? We want local subs to know these are here because that could help drive these prices down if contractors know, oh, this component, it could be done locally. And I don't have to ferry people in.
Mm-hmm.
I had an interesting conversation with a gal from the company that's doing high school today. I asked about the logistics. How are you guys doing? Because they're from Puyallup, the company is. So, right, and this would be, you go where the work is. And I said, are you finding a place for people to stay here because they got all summer here working? She goes, no, they're just ferrying in every day. And she was, yeah. So, and that, guess who's paying for that? The school district, just like we will be for everyone who has to ferry in on ours. I mean, there's no place to stay around here unless you do an Airbnb. I mean, if you got, there's only so many, and then you have people that may work or may live in Linwood or Snohomish or someplace like that. I don't want to stay in a house. I want to go home every night. I don't want to, So my point is that the more locals that are a part of these projects, it's going to drive the price down. So, anyways,
I mean, just from a logistics point of view, there are places to stay right in Mukilteo, right on
There
the
is.
speedway.
But if you're,
Rooms, even if it's just for 3 or 4 nights a week, and you temporarily rent a passenger van.
and I don't know that they're going to Puyallup every night. The company's from
Right.
Puyallup.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that
Yeah.
people coming, working here are from Puyallup. But it was just an interesting kind of insight as to what they have to think about. But the other thing through all these contractors we've talked about, they go to where the work is and they figure it out. Right. I mean, the work dictates some of this. Usually most of them have a region. They're kind of their boundaries of what they're willing to go to. So, and they figured it out. And so they were there today. We also met, Sky and I had one final, well, not a final, but we had a meeting with pickleball group, some of the leaders of the pickleball community, just to talk through the plans one more time. They had several last minute changes, which caused a little bit of a scramble. Some we incorporated, some we didn't. So they were suggestions, and some of them were very good suggestions, but that was good. So we got some last minute tweaks, just small things, just lowered some fences here and did stuff like that. It wasn't anything major, but it's good to have some more, want their support when this is done and want them to feel good about it. So I want them to come to the board meeting and say what a great experience it was. So pickleball, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think we're in a good spot. The South Whidbey project, which we talked about, have pledged at least $2,500. But because they have more money set aside for the basketball court, I asked if they would consider using the money that they don't need there and putting it towards pickleball, because we don't really have money for any amenities in pickleball, benches, windscreens, things we're going to have to buy, things you hook your paddles on, all that little cosmetic stuff. We just, the budget's tight, so we just didn't put it in there. So to have this outside group come and say, hey, we'll be willing to kick in money to make this better. So excited about that. And then we get to the other project we're doing. It's also out to bid. We moved this date back. It was July 9th originally. We moved it back to the 15th, which is the day before the board meeting. At 1 o'clock, you guys are welcome to come to this one. It's a big deal. I don't know how much we're going to know that day. Mark, the project manager, and I will probably be working late that day trying to take our time to figure these, the framework of these bids. But we did have our second site visit today too. So we've had a couple site visits today. We had a bigger group today than we had last week. We had 23 people. Between the two, we've had a total of 10 general contractors site visit. And that's for the pool. Site visit is required. It was an optional one for the pickleball, but you had to come to the site visit for the pool. So we had 10 general contractors come through. That's significant. And one of them today was like, they're hungry. Meaning the contractors are hungry. They're trying to keep their teams working right now. So he goes, his quote was, "It's a great time to go out to bid." So I said, "Good, get out to bid quickly." So I hope he's right. And he lives in Clinton, so he's a local guy too. So waiting on, we got just today, about an hour ago, we got the final septic permit from the state, which is a huge accomplishment. That's great. 2 things left that we're dealing with. That's relatively small in the permit thing. Not small, but it's two things instead of 20. With the state, there's the water permit still from the Department of Health. Gal is reviewing it. There's been no feedback that there's any concerns. It's just she's overwhelmed and really busy. And then we got notice from the county last week that there was they didn't like our plan to dump the water when the pool had to be emptied. So this is the way the pool gets emptied. There's a process. I don't know the process yet, but there's a process to take the chemicals out of the water. So it just becomes basically like water. Right. And then you put the water down the stormwater retention pond in segments, right? Because it's too much at one time. So it may take a few days, do it in August. So that's the plan. That's what the state recommends. It's what Bainbridge Island, which is a comparable to us because they have septic there. That's what they do. So it's a consistent policy with what should be done. The county found some of their codes that seem to contradict that you're not supposed to put this water down the stormwater retention ponds. So I went straight to the director of public works and just said, hey, and I got some verbiage from our architect just saying, here's the precedents, here's what we're asking. Here are the examples of where it's done. This is what the state tells us to do. Because their only option to us was you can bring water trucks in and empty it that way.
Oh, no.
Now, we looked at that because we gotta vet it, because that's, if they tell us that's our only option, then we're gonna have to do it. You know, the pool's gonna be probably every 3 years or so. It's not a yearly thing.
Oh.
But the initial time, we're gonna have to fill it and dump it, I think, twice, just at the beginning when it first comes in. So we got a rough quote from a company of about $30,000 to do that. And he said it would take about 7 days, because they would have to load the 4,000 gallon truck. Question to him was, well, where do you take it? He said, I don't know, some field somewhere. I was like, thinking like it was I don't know, it was like, it was just water at that point. It's not chemically watered. Anyways. Good. So I reached out to the director and I said, hey, can we talk? I said, I think there's a middle ground here. I think we just gotta. And he did get back to me yesterday and just said, hey, we're re-looking at this, trying to find options that make sense. And I'll get back to you. So those are the two things. So it's the state water we're waiting for, and it's Island County to sign off on our emptying the pool plan. So at the end of the day, those aren't major obstacles. I don't think they're just there. So, but it's exciting. Go ahead.
You said the septic designers just signed off on?
We are, where the state has signed off on our septic plan. So that is a big hurdle. The septic and water are the two big hurdles. So, yeah. So we're getting there, and you know, I'm really optimistic that there's a lot of interest right now, and I think we're going to get a lot of bids. I wasn't sure, just don't know. But I think people are in on this project. So now just give us a number we can live with, and we potentially could have groundbreakings in August and September, 2 different projects. And that actually brings me to another question that I didn't have here, which was, I imagine we're going to want to do a ceremonial groundbreaking for the pool.
Oh, absolutely.
Hard hats, shovels.
Yep.
I don't know if you want that for the pickleball.
Wouldn't we?
Yeah, why wouldn't we? Especially given the fact that public, right, that their group was so instrumental in raising.
I said we don't. We certainly gonna have a ribbon cutting. We're certainly gonna have other things, but the groundbreaking isn't always the. So we can do it for both.
School has anything to do with it. I think we need to.
Okay. Groundbreakings for both.
Yeah.
I'll buy some shovels and some hard hats.
Yeah.
So okay, that'll be fun. Right. Right, just kind of the July meeting thing, just to kind of make sure we're on the same page here. As I said earlier, the July 16th meeting, pickleball contractor, hopefully we'll be approving that contractor at that meeting. We'll have updates on the SWPRD bids. It'll be the next day, so we will not have a decision at that point. But at that point, hopefully I will be able to say, it's looking all right. We're looking pretty good. Like we have some that look interesting. We just have to finish vetting them. Or no, I think that kind of update is going to happen in the July meeting. But 2 weeks later, and just save the date, we kind of talked about that Monday, the 28th, for a special meeting, because we have to approve the levy resolution. And potentially at that point, we might be ready to approve a pool contractor, and that would be great. I don't know if we'll be ready for that. That might have to wait to the August meeting. It just depends on how close it is and how many different factors we're talking about. So anyways, for now, keep those 2 dates. July is going to be very busy. So I think we're organizing on top of it, but there's just a lot of things going on.
And then the 15th, the 16th.
And then we got
Saturday.
triathlon on Saturday. Yeah, it's just another week. It will be fine.
Time blocking. It's all about time blocking.
We're very organized. And Carrie comes back on the 14th after being gone for a month. So pretty much that week is going to be a lot of caffeine. It'll be great. I'm excited because this is where it's all happening. All the work that's been done, all the dreams of the community for all these projects. We're literally talking about groundbreaking ceremonies. That's very exciting. So we're close. So anyways, that is our comprehensive plan update. Good news all around so far.
There's no further discussion. We'll move on to new business. Commissioner remote attendance policy.
All right, well, at the May board meeting, board voted to suspend the resolution for remote attendance that was found recently. In your packet was some examples of other jurisdictions and how they handle remote attendance. What I'm looking for tonight is for you to look over the example, or for hopefully look over the examples. What I'm hoping tonight is to get a whole bunch of your ideas. And then what I'm hoping to do is to take those ideas and draft them into a new policy. It could be a short policy, it could be a long policy, I don't care, however much detail you want in it. And then I'm hoping to send that to you when it's drafted or before the next board meeting. So you have time to kind of just soak it in. So it's not like you have to 3 days to look at it. And then just update this part of the thing. These are with everything else going on, this is just another thing, but it's an important thing, right? It's something that this was drafted in 2013, the one we just resolved, and the world's very different now. So just to get the conversation going, I did in your packet give you some things you might want to consider. Specifically, do you want to limit the number of times per year a board member can attend virtually? Do you want to require prior notification? If so, how much in advance? And of course, what happens if they don't give notification? And who do they give notification to? Does that have to be in writing? So I'm giving you a lot of details, but these are the things that in a policy we need to really be. We want your policy to be specific and not just vague, because vague it's a waste of time to do a vague policy. Should certain meetings require in-person attendance, like the budget workshop, the budget hearings, annual meeting? Should certain issues require in-person votes, like a bond levy vote or a resolution? If the chair is virtual, should the vice chair be the proceeding officer? And the last one I threw on there is, should virtual attendees be allowed into executive session? So again, if we're gonna make a policy, it needs some detail. So I'm gonna kind of ask those. If you want to kind of tackle these one by one, or do you want to just freestyle?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take the first one.
Okay.
Do you want to limit the amount of times a board member can attend virtually?
Yeah.
Okay. Seeing some nodding. And what would that number be?
Yeah, I would love ideas or what that number is, but I think because this is I say yes, because this is a community organization.
Mhm.
So we're not a transnational Fortune 500 company operating
Yet.
in. So I feel like being present in person in the community should be.
Yes. Can I follow up to what me and Jennifer were talking about, which was we're going to have people in those seats making public comments as these projects go on. Hopefully positive people. Hopefully people that are coming to say thank you for getting this done. But we're going to have a lot more public input over the next couple of years. And I just kind of goes along with what you said, which was being present and looking them in the eye is valuable. Jake, you had a thought.
Yeah, I mean, if all of us are virtual and the public's here, that looks very poor.
Yeah.
I was thinking 3 to 5 max, but then say you've used your 3 or whatever, and then let the chair and the director know, hey, I got I'm hobbling around the house. I need to stay home, or so I can't drive here. If you have a good reason, and I think that should be able to be extended potentially, not just black and white.
What I've seen in other places is what you just said, which was, okay, you can do virtually 3 times a year for any reason. But beyond that, you have to have chair approval. And it has to be so much in advance. So it's not like it's an hour before and I'm not showing up. Or, this is what we were talking about earlier too, or you can still visually come into the meeting through the TV, but you're just not a voting member at that point. So let's say, Jake, you missed 3, but you want to check in on a 4th, but you haven't got permission. You haven't went through the right channels. Well, you can listen in just like anyone in the public.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But you're basically just a community member at that point. You're not a voting member of the board. So you've lost your privilege to be part of the vote or whatever the issues are that night.
Yeah, because my question was, yes, I want to limit it, but
Right,
where's the consequence? And
gotcha. And it's not saying that, no, you can't make other arrangements, but you need to make those arrangements respectfully with a certain amount of notice with good reason. And then it's up to the board chair to allow it or not.
oh, above and beyond the 3 to 5 or
Right.
whatever it is that we land
Right.
on.
Like my work has, using the contractor in Puyallup, right? My work has me on this project for the next 3 months, working remotely. I am giving you this notice.
Yeah,
Right? Like,
That makes a lot of sense.
we all live on the south end somewhere. Langley isn't too far. I think the default should be here in person.
yes.
I mean, the furthest drive on the south end, what if you're Classic Road or something, or Skagit Head is, I don't even know if it's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe close to it.
But I do feel like there needs to be allowance for understanding that
Life happens.
life happens. Work requires us to be in other places. Family requires us to be in other places. However, there needs to be communication. It needs to be handled professionally.
They are elected officials. And they are hotly contested,
Right.
but
Oh, they will be.
we are elected officials and we have a duty.
Yeah.
And along with that is not just respect for the fact representing constituent, it's respect for the fellow members on the board. And a no-show is not acceptable. It's just not acceptable.
I mean, we had prior notice.
Yes. For
Yeah,
one of
we had a
the
month's
two.
notice. Yeah. I gave you, I think, 2 months' notice for February.
Right.
Right?
So
You're
in,
here on your crutches, for God's sake. I mean,
in terms of the, like, certain types of meetings, I don't know, I don't think I feel very strongly about that.
Okay.
Particularly.
So I did have some thoughts in that, especially around budget hearing. I think we have to all be together. That's hard to participate virtually.
For
to
the
be part of the
workshop or the,
budget hearing, which is designed for the public, right? That's what the budget hearing is.
workshop.
No, I think you're right for that one too. Because I mean, that's the one we're saying to the public, come in and hear about our budget. That's what a budget hearing is, right?
I think things where there are discussions, right? We know that there is a major discussion issue going on. Need to be present. You've participated virtually. I participated virtually. It's very difficult to understand what's going on in the room and fully participate. Not saying you can't, but I'm just saying you need to make effort.
Can we crank out 1 and 2 before we go to 3?
Yes.
Because we got 3. So
All
the
right,
answer
so we
to,
said
the
yes
answer to
to
1
limit.
was 1, and I'm just gonna put 3 in there in the draft. I think 3, 1 out of every, that's still a quarter of
Quarterly.
the meetings.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Prior notification, now we've now got 2 paths here. Prior notification for one of your 3 might just be an hour or 2. I mean, if you are stuck at work and it's 5 o'clock and you're like, or I'm on a ferry and I can't get there. Okay. You know, and that to me is not a big deal. Even a half hour wouldn't be a big deal to me, just to know that you're coming.
Right.
But after 3, then I think probably that time should be extended to days, maybe even a week, where it's like, okay, I've hit my 3, but I know that I'm going out of town, or, you know, or something's happened for a few months and blah, blah, blah. And then, okay, you've been approved for, 3 more, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So maybe it's something where it's like,
As soon as practical, right? Eric knew he was gonna be gone.
but should there be a minimum? And that's where it's like, okay, maybe for the one of the 3, it's like, okay, at least a half an hour before the board meeting, something like that, something simple. But for the beyond that, if you're,
I think an absolute minimum would be 48 hours.
yeah, me too. That 48 was the number I was coming up with. So basically Monday. And should it be Jennifer or me? But I think Jennifer makes sense. Maybe both.
I think it's gotta be both.
I
Yeah.
think it's both.
What about the people? What about for the first 3? To me, it's not that big a deal to have a notice if it's just, but do they have to give notice? Because that's not happening. I mean, for instance,
If you know you are not going to be able to participate, there absolutely must be notice.
no, but in this case, it's not that. In this case, it's I'm going to be virtual. Right, we're talking about remote attendance.
So of the 3, right, so what could be reasons for that last minute decision? It could be, a child that is sick
Right.
all of a sudden,
Mhm.
or missing a ferry, or got stuck at work. Right? That's usually a within 2 hours, like I was planning on going, but I have to pivot and go online.
Right.
If you're fine, I'd say if we will have a quorum, right? You're still attending, we will have a quorum. It's just understanding how they're gonna attend. I think an hour, 30 minutes
Yeah.
is fine for those.
For
three.
logistical snafus and life happening.
Right.
And we can certainly put some verbiage in there that less than an hour can be approved by the chair or the director
Right.
if in extraordinary circumstances, I didn't know I was gonna miss the ferry and now it's 5:15 and now I'm under an hour. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to be too legalistic here.
Right.
But it does beg the question because this has happened. And, but no notice is given, but they pop up on the teams.
There needs to be notice.
Okay.
I think there needs to be notice. I think it should be expected that we're here
In
and
fact,
otherwise give notice.
back to respect for the position, for the board, and for the public who are attending and commenting.
Makes a lot of sense. So, and I'm just going through the list because I think we have it. Yes to prior notification. I think an hour in hour and 48 hours if you're beyond your 3. Because in that case, you're saying there's something extraordinary that's happened. With a little caveat in there that the director and chair can waive that in extraordinary circumstances with prior notice. And, or may not. What happens if they don't? I think we've kind of come to that you can listen, you just can't, an active member that night. I think that's reasonable. Doesn't have to be in writing.
Yeah, you can't be an active member and you don't go towards a quorum.
No, yeah, you're
You're just there to listen.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
fine. I
Not
mean,
participate
anyone
in
can do that.
discussion
That's a
or
good
voting
thing.
or.
And okay, that's reasonable. In writing or is a phone call enough? I don't. They have to put this in an email or a text, or could it just be here?
So easy to send a text. I mean, right, and not,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel to me like you have to log into your commissioner email account and send, right? I mean. If it's totally on the fly and like,
I think. Yeah,
just,
reach out.
A form of communication. Send pigeons.
smoke signals.
Would a phone call work though?
I don't see why not. I would be fine with that.
Okay. That's fine with me too. I just,
For that 3. Life happens, I'm stuck on the ferry. Yeah, I think a phone call. I think a phone call would.
I'd be fine with that, just as long as we know. And, either I can shoot Jennifer a text or vice versa saying, hey, Krista's not going to be here tonight or she's going to be virtual tonight. But now it brings us to what we were talking about a little bit before. So I kind of have 3 categories here: budget workshop, budget hearing, annual meeting, and then anything big like a bond or a levy vote or a resolution. You guys started this conversation. I'll let you finish it. What's your preference?
This is where I think I differ,
Okay.
and I'm fine to be outvoted in that every meeting is important. Or every meeting could be important.
Mhm.
I agree. You definitely are able to participate more and you catch more when you're in person. But because we are all professionals and ran for this position, I'm going to take a leap and say that anybody who would be a commissioner would be thoroughly capable of doing any of those meetings remotely.
Thank you, Bob.
I would like to see everyone here for like the budget workshop. Voting, if we've already discussed things. And we know what we're voting on, I definitely go with Krista on that. even if we're voting for a bond or a levy, I think someone could do that online.
Mhm.
I would prefer if someone was here for an actual workshop.
Right, because by the time we get to a vote on those important things, we've already been in discussion
We've already discussed.
for at least one, if not 3 meetings,
Right.
right, prior to.
Mhm.
I can leave a workshop on that category, and Eric and Matt still will chime in on this, I hope, because they're the other two that are here tonight. What about the hearing? Because the hearing to me is kind of one that we're inviting the public to. Public's invited to any of our meetings, I get that, but isn't the purpose of the budget hearing to say, hey, public, here's our hearing, or here's our budget, excuse me.
So this would, has there been any public comment during a budget hearing?
I've only been to 2, and no.
And I don't recall that there has been.
We leave that one off, that's fine. So if we want to say, okay, in person required for the budget workshop, which would be October, as we do our budget workshop. Because that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the other ones is like, yeah, it's fine to be virtual for the other ones. Is that kind of the more or less consensus? I know it's not unanimous, but
So where does the upcoming levy come in, right? There's,
well, right now it doesn't. Right now, the way that we're kind of leaning is, for instance, Eric will be here remotely
Mhm.
on the 28th for that levy vote, or for the resolution vote, because he's out of state. So that'd be a good example of handcuffing him. But again, all of this can have a disclaimer of exceptions can be made in extraordinary circumstances, and we'll put that on all of this. So there's not, we want to get the work done, and we don't want to tie our hands and not be able to do the work.
Right.
But your question is a question for everyone, which is, outside of the workshop, does anyone feel that any of these other categories should require in person? Kind of getting the vibe that the answer is no. But
I think
May-
you're
we-
right. I think the vibe is correct.
we also could put something in there saying this is required and this is strongly encouraged. Like we strongly encourage direct participation in in all meetings, but especially the ones that have major consequences.
I prefer that.
Yeah.
Rather than having. Like, you have to come to this one. Because again, calamity doesn't check.
Right.
Right, so something like that where. Highlighting, strongly encouraging or highlighting certain meetings, certain topics.
I think, yeah, if we have some wording like default attendance is in person.
But I think
Yeah.
that's also going to put onus, when we have our annual meeting in January and we're approving the calendar of meetings for the upcoming year
And board positions.
and board
committees.
positions and committees and things like that, I think that is an opportunity to say, okay, in the September meeting, that's the budget workshop, to do some looking ahead and trying to make sure that whatever that can be pre-planned
Mhm.
is.
Set your calendars.
Mhm.
So the way I'm hearing, and this is why I'm going to draft it up again. I'm just sending a draft, so it can be butchered. Is I'm hearing we want to require the budget workshop, make the rest strongly encouraged, with the caveat that the chair or the director can always make an exception if there's an extraordinary circumstance at their discretion. Yeah. In other words, Jake wants to stay home and watch the World Series. That's not an extraordinary circumstance. Unless the Mariners are playing.
Game
which
the
case-
Mariners.
In which case the board meeting is canceled. So that's also,
So we will have a special meeting to change the.
that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Extraordinary circumstances.
That would be extraordinary. circumstances. Okay, so I feel pretty good about that. And I think the next one's gonna be yes, because this is what almost every other organization does. But if the chair is virtual, should the vice chair run the meeting?
So we did when I was in Minnesota.
Yeah,
That,
that makes
and I feel strongly about that. I think whoever is leading the meeting.
Yes. Agreed. Unless you guys disagree, so I'm seeing nodding. And last one I had was, should virtual attendees be allowed in an executive session? I will say most of the places I looked at, they did allow it. But just because that's, And it would be in this room. If we had executive session, we would clear the public comment and then go stand outside. And you'd be here anyway, so it's not like the other place where we had a conference room.
Sounds good.
So the policy that we found and have suspended,
Yes.
we all determined was technology, if you will, grossly out of date.
Yes.
So looking at the attendance procedure, all of this announcing.
Yeah. You're talking about like, in this case, because by announcing, I mean, what do you mean? Make sure.
Go ahead, Krista.
Oh, gotcha. So beginning the remote access, at the beginning, the presiding officer should state for the record, let the record reflect that Commissioner blank is
Right.
attending via remote access. Can you hear me? Please confirm. No, please confirm that no one else will be present in the room with you during this
Yeah.
remote access session. Conclusion, you have to. This I think is extremely 2013.
Yes.
And is pre like earbuds. I just feel like this
That just,
is not necessary.
I have asked Carrie in the minutes to start denoting when someone's virtual. Just
I
so,
think that's really,
That's fine.
yeah, and so just so we have a original,
Yes.
just because.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I wouldn't, I did add, and these are some other examples, I may weave in some of these things into the policy, things like, you know, for the purpose of voting, you know, this is equal to being physically attending and blah, blah, blah. So there are some other verbiage, some other little kind of non-controversial things, that I may just blend in to make the policy a little thicker. So my plan is to work on this probably sooner than later, because as we get closer to July, I gotta get really busy.
Yep.
And to get a draft to you guys, you have plenty of time to look at it. And, you know, and then either come back in July or August to talk about it, or if most of the feedback is, yeah, this looks good, I may just put on a consent agenda and let someone pull it off if they have problems with it, if we get that far. So, I know summer is really busy for all of us, so if this takes a few months, it takes a few months. If we have it done by July, we have it done by July. It's not like we've been living for 12 years with a policy we didn't know we had. So, we're doing pretty well here. So thank you. This helps a lot. I will get a draft to get the conversation moving forward, and it's a good conversation. There's no other questions or comment. That's all I have for.
all right. Authorization for staff to recruit a ProCon committee.
Yeah, we are at that stage. Deanna, the attorney from Pacifica, had said that we should get your permission before we do this. It's time to start recruiting members to a pro-con committee, so we can give those names to the county. Will not be trouble finding a pro group around here because we have a whole pool foundation. And that's very animated about getting this thing moved. So, anyways, but we have to start recruiting. So Deanna says I need you guys' approval before we do that. So this is a simple one. I'm just asking for you to approve it so we can start the process.
I'll make a motion to authorize staff to start recruiting members for pro and con committees for the November 2025 levy.
I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize staff to begin recruiting members for pro and con committees for the November 2025 levy. All those in favor say aye.
Krista, I.
Jake, I.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion passes.
And just a quick update on that. Oh yeah, thank you, Jake. Quick update on the operational money budget that I'm created. PSE was the last company I had to hear back from, so I'm making the operational budgets for the pool so that we know how much the levy should be. So I got the last information from PSE, which, okay. So tomorrow when I'm here, that's one of the things I want to get done is finalizing the operational budget. So that we kind of know what we're asking for as far as how much it's going to cost us. So that's getting pretty close to being done too. So there's two factors on the levy. One is that numbers, what we think it's going to cost just to run the pool plus our regular operations. And then the second part of the levy is if we don't get a bid we can accept, which is worst case scenario, how much more would we need on top of what we have? So that's what's kind of holding up there. That's why we're having a special meeting. So we have time to figure that out. So, but I'm optimistic. The walkthroughs with the contractors really opened my eyes to the energy and excitement for both of these projects. So hopefully that results in a good competitive bid. And big turnouts with both groups was great because, if there was two contractors, they're gonna be like, I'm marking this sucker up,
Yeah.
right? So the fact that there's lots of competition is gonna
Very.
hopefully keep that price nice and manageable on both projects. So,
And one was from Clinton.
yeah, well, he lives here.
Okay,
His company wasn't from Clinton, but he lives here. So, and it's gonna be the lowest bid. It's gonna be the lowest bid from a qualified company. So, we don't have any say in that part other than we get a bet. The definition of qualified, make sure that they do the job. So real exciting. This fall, I got a captain's chair and a bowl of popcorn. I'm just gonna sit and watch these things come together. So it's quite exciting. So that is it. Thank you for very efficient, very interesting input.
Okay.
All right, on that note, we are adjourned at 7:19.
Okay. I will stop the recording in a few seconds here. Once I can.